Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne, and if you are new here, welcome. I hope you have a great time looking around all my videos. To my subscribers and my choir members, hello. I greatly appreciate you all. So we've got more toxic culture in politics at the moment. So yesterday on the live stream, we talked about how the Tasmanian Labor leader was in fact resigning due to some allegations that were 10 years old. So today, an independent MP has come out and said that it's a toxic environment. We've also got a fallout from Julia Banks's the interviews that she's doing regarding her book release. So let's take a look at these two things today. And my camera is going really confused. I think it's because I've got florals on. It doesn't know where to go. I apologize. I'm not very good at all the techie stuff, so I apologize to you all. Right, so this is independent Christy Johnson has criticised members of the Tasmanian Labor Party for supporting David O'Brien's leadership bid despite knowing he was facing allegations of sexual harassment. He resigned on Sunday after apologising over allegations he sexually harassed a junior union employee more than a decade ago. So Tasmania Labor will meet on Wednesday to discuss the party's future and leadership options. So she was saying that this politician is close to the complainant and who she confided in at the time. So it was disappointing people had supported Mr. O'Brien's leadership campaign despite the complainant lodging a formal complaint through the proper channels. There have been people within the Labor movement who have actively gone out knowing that the complaint exists, having said they believe the complainant and have actively gone out and endorsed and supported Mr. O'Brien. This is a complete betrayal. So how can a party say with all honesty and any credibility over the next 4 years if within their ranks they have someone who has admitted this conduct, that they believe in workers' rights and women's rights? I note how quickly they came out and condemned the actions of Adam Brooks when these were matters of public discourse, yet their silence had been deafening. And she, of course, doesn't want him in Parliament. She said it's not good enough that Mr. O'Brien had resigned as leader of the party but would remain in state parliament as the member of Franklin. So they're talking about the fact that there's this toxic culture and, yeah. Acting Labor leader Anita Dow said the Tasmanian Labor Party remains supportive of women. I can make a firm commitment to Tasmanian people that the Tasmanian Labor Party has a proud history of supporting women within our party, of course within the Parliament and to community at large. This hasn't wavered. She said she was first made aware of the allegations when they were raised in the media, but refused to comment on whether Mr. O'Brien should step aside as a member of Franklin. I'm not going to be drawn on that. He's made his decision, and I'm sure there'll be lots of public commentary around that, she said. So there's an investigation. We've got to certainly re-engage with the Tasmanian community and earn their trust and confidence once again, so it's going to be a big job. So that is on that one. Then we've got this one, unwanted advice, bully boys and backgrounding former Liberal MP Julia Banks on her time at Parliament House. So she's, remember, she's got a book coming out, so she's now doing interviews. So this is part of her interviews with that was on here.
I left because of that 3 months of treatment where I realised Morrison, the most powerful man in the country, I describe him as like a menacing, controlling wallpaper. He was either doing it through his emissaries or directly. He wanted me silenced. He wanted me to be quiet. He wanted me out of the parliament. I mean, he wanted me out of the country. And I felt, at that time, I thought, I'm challenging him, and that was his response. His response was to sort of drag me through this sort of sexist spectrum narrative that I was this weak, over emotional woman to the bully bitch. That narrative was played all the way through that 3 months.
So there you go. That was that. So she has on the 7:30 report on the ABC. She has done an interview. So she did it with 7:30's Laura Tingle. It's really quite startling what she says, and her startling portrait of the political culture comes just as Parliament is undergoing a major workplace review sparked by former staffer Brittany Higgins' allegations that she was by a colleague on a couch in the ministerial wing. Ms Banks describes an incident one evening at Parliament House when all the coalition MPs were corralled into the then Prime Minister's Malcolm Turnbull's wing. The government had a one-seat majority at the time, and the House of Representatives was due to hold an important vote late that night. The MPs were being shepherded to avoid anyone missing the narrow vote. I was sitting on the couch talking to another MP, she told 7:30. Then the cabinet minister sat on my right. He did sort of that flippant, how are you, and then put his hand on my knee and ran it up my leg on the upper part of my thigh. She said she momentarily froze and then walked away. She then went and told another female MP that the man had made a move on her and asked her to keep speaking with her. The fact that the alleged incident occurred in a room full of people in the Prime Minister's wing in the same ways only aided its plausible deniability, Ms Banks said, because the perception of that, of course, that wouldn't happen. It has plausible deniability credentials, gold class, she said. In a statement, a spokesman for Prime Minister Morrison said the Prime Minister is not aware of any allegations of sexual harassment Ms Banks faced. Any such behaviour is inappropriate. Everyone has a right to feel safe in their workplace, and work currently underway by Kate Jenkins will continue to improve Parliament's workplace culture. Former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said he was not aware of the alleged incident involving the cabinet minister until he had ceased to be PM. So he didn't know it at the time. Now, there is another interesting, a couple of interesting points here. She said she's not fearless, there's consequences. She said the culture in Parliament remained years behind the culture in the corporate sector. She said entering politics felt like stepping back in time to the mid-80s, even though she spent much of her time in the corporate career in the blokey, male-dominated companies. There have been strong stories about the treatment of women in and around politics in recent years. We've got Brittany Higgins, to former Australia Post executive Christine Holgate, Julia Banks. Miss Banks said she could easily see commonality in these cases in the way Prime Minister Scott Morrison has sought to control the narrative. She raised the examples of Mr Morrison saying Miss Higgins may have been confused about the timeline events and Mr Morrison blasting Miss Holgate in Parliament. In her own case, Miss Banks said Mr Morrison tried to portray her as a weak pedal that had not coped with the mental strain of the leadership spill. Oh dear me. So we've looked at some of this, but this is another one that was really interesting. She said shortly after the announcements, Miss Banks said someone came and started rapping on the office of her door. We realised it was Treasurer Josh Frydenberg banging at the door, she said. She said the Treasurer had come to make a deal to secure her guarantee of confidence to supply the floor on the House of Representatives. She told Mr Frydenberg there would be no deals. I said, this shouldn't be a surprise to you, Josh. I've been talking to you and Scott Morrison the whole time. And while I was saying this, I realised he was live texting Sky News because I could see everything that I was saying coming up on television screens. It was quite extraordinary. She said at one stage she called Mr Morrison and asked him to get his bully boys off. She said she was offered a 3-month position as a delegate in New York because the PM wanted to silence me and out of the country. Of course, the Prime Minister's office hasn't responded to questions, and either has Josh Frydenberg. Now, what's happening? How are they responding to this? Well, we've got, not my experience, Liberal MPs say they haven't witnessed sexism. Now, I find this really interesting because this is the Sydney Morning Herald. Federal and state Liberal MPs say that they've not witnessed the culture of sexism and misogyny within the party portrayed by former federal MP Julia Banks in her new book, in which she alleged she was inappropriately touched by a male coalition member. Victorian federal MP Katie Allen, who in her first term said she felt quite supported by her federal Liberal colleagues, but more support was needed for politicians and staff to deal with the high-stakes environment of Parliament. So certainly my experience has been different from Julie's, but that's not to say it didn't happen. Dr. Allen said there is no doubt politics is contested and the outcomes are brutal. House Minister Greg Hunt, who served in federal parliament for 2 decades, has not read Miss Banks' account when asked of her allegations on Saturday, but he hadn't seen a culture of sexism within the government. He's a man, he's not going to say it. That's not one of the things I witnessed Mr. Hunt said on Saturday. I can only speak of my own practices. For me, my practice since I've been there is that Canberra is a place for work. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. So they're talking about her book. On one occasion while gathering at Parliament House, she said an unnamed cabinet minister who smelled a breath of alcohol, so the guy was drunk, what. Now, this is also interesting. A spokeswoman for Women, Marise Payne, said everyone had a right to feel safe in the workplace, and the government had agreed or noted all 55 recommendations from the High Rights Commission Respect at Work report. Any allegations of sexual harassment would constitute completely inappropriate behaviour and are entirely unacceptable. Asked about the allegations at the press conference, Labor leader Anthony Albanese said he had regarded Ms Banks as someone of real integrity and someone who tried to represent her constituents and represent her values in this parliament and certainly in her private life. Victorian Liberal Deputy Leader Cindy McLeish said she always felt equally treated among her male colleagues and had not experienced of any instances of sexual harassment. Absolutely, that's how I felt since I joined the party and I still feel now. On Miss Banks' allegations around pre-selection, Ms McLeish said the pre-selection in the Liberal Party is pretty harrowing because we work hard to make sure we get the best people in, and gosh, it was such a long time ago. I was pre-selected. People do make it difficult, and I think we've come a long way in trying to stamp that out. So that's from the Sydney Morning Herald. So what do you think about all of these allegations, the doubling down, by the Liberal Party, both nationally and Victoria? Tell me what you think in the comments below. But I just find it really interesting that they go to Greg Hunt and talk about sexism. The other thing is, we also know that Marise Payne, when the Brittany Higgins alleged R occurred in Marise Payne's office, and she referred to her as a lying cow. And that's our Minister for Women. So, I'm just saying. I just put it out there. You tell me what you think in the comments below, and you have a great day. Thank you. But don't forget to hit